everybody. I'm Eben. Welcome to Craig's Gun Channel for our fifth episode of Random Shots. And today we're trying a new feature. We are live. Thanks for being with us.
Yep, I'm Craig, and this is Random Shots. And basically, it's the show where we discuss anything and everything, conspiracy theories, preparedness, politics, firearms, basically gear, anything at all. We just talk about it.
Anything we want to.
Yep, and as always, if you have any comments, please let us know. Anything you think you want us to talk about, or things you don't want us to talk about. And like we said the last time, it probably means we'll talk about it more.
Twice. We'll talk about it twice if you don't want to hear us. So,
so I guess we'll go ahead and.
What do we got today?
We'll start off with new technologies and stuff here.
Looks like state of Illinois. This is going to be good.
Yep.
Lay it on us.
State of Illinois, the constantly changing gun laws, and basically the assault weapons. I use that term because that's the term that they all use.
Boogeyman.
So we all know what it means then. The assault weapons law, how it keeps it's just a total, it's a circus there in Illinois. So just in case people, weren't aware, which I don't know how you wouldn't be, but maybe this is your first time. In Illinois' lame duck legislature, they used some political trickery in a process called gut and replace to hijack a law on amusement park slides and one on insurance adjuster regulations to allow it to bypass the normal state legislative process.
So wait a second. This is the one that we've been talking about over the last couple weeks.
Yes.
Little snippets.
Yep.
They've changed it again. Something else has happened?
Oh, yeah, something else has happened. And to be honest, just like before, by the time people are watching this, it's probably going to change again.
That's insane.
Yeah,
that
so
is insane.
First, they rushed through this law, bypassed what would be the normal process. And basically, their normal process, their state requires for their legislature that there would be 3 readings of any new legislation in both chambers, the Senate and the House.
It checks out. Yeah.
And they didn't have time for that because that session of Congress was about to end. I mean, it was the end of the year, all that kind of stuff. So they did the gut and replace. They took a couple laws that had already went through the entire process and just needed the final vote. They removed everything on inside and replaced it with their gun control scheme. And using that underhanded process, they were able to hijack the legislation, which had already passed the required process, and do a final vote and to approve it on January 10th. And then, of course, Governor Pritzker immediately signed it into law on that same day, and it was effective immediately. Basically, it's a far-reaching, typical ban on everything, register what you have, and as you would expect, lawsuits
This is that
came up.
list of like 500 guns.
Yeah, that huge list of all the guns.
Yep.
And they described the operation and a whole bunch by name. So, of course, some lawsuits followed. One of the big ones had about 800 people that were litigants in it. And they brought their lawsuit claiming, that it was a violation of equal protection rights. The General Assembly had violated the Illinois Constitution requirements. That bills deal with only one subject, that they be read 3 times on different days in both chambers, and a guarantee of due process, all of which was true. They did not do all that stuff properly. As a result of that suit, the court delivered a TRO, or temporary restraining order.
I remember that.
Yep. To prevent the law from going into effect, at least for those people that were listed in the suit, so those 800 and some people. So, the state appealed that TRO, and just this week, on Tuesday, January 30th, the appellate court heard the case. While the judge panel discounted much of the suit, they went ahead and said, honestly, what they said is, all that the legislative hijacking and trickery,
don't care about that.
Don't care about that. What they did care about was the equal protection argument. And as a result, in a 2-to-1 ruling, they not only upheld the restraining order, but they expanded it to include the entire state and all citizens.
Nice. Minor battle win, I'd say, for Second Amendment in Chicago.
And of course, it's still, they're going to be appealing it again, so this isn't over. But it's nice to see that the judicial system is actually starting to pay attention and honestly judge things on their merit instead of just political
I
activism.
smell a fish. I don't know, man. I still don't trust it.
No,
It's,
well, I honestly, I don't either. I
it's-
still go back to what we've been saying all along. Get out of Illinois.
I'm excited that there is a small win for this whole process. My intuition would have probably guided me into thinking that this was just going to be a whitewash of completely left ideals running through the courts, running through the appellate courts, running through the appeals process, and still coming up with the same end result, which I still think we're going to end up with in Chicago. But it's nice to have a hiccup where there are people in Chicago that are fighting for their rights and actually getting some traction here. So
At least a speed bump on their little process.
Yeah, so it's still get out, like Craig said, but celebrate your little win and get back to work, Illinois.
Yep. And this brings me to the next thing I want to talk about. If looking back at this, what we just covered, this whole gun control thing, the reason that this really suddenly was an urgent issue was because there was a mass shooting in, an upscale part of Chicago, and there were some people that were killed, and that is a tragedy. And the people that did that need to be held accountable and brought to justice. But here's the reality, though. Also in Chicago, just this past weekend, 30 people were shot, 6 fatally, in shootings across Chicago.
Is that a typo? Did that say Kabul, Iraq?
No. It's really Chicago.
Oh, it says okay.
Yep.
All right, I just want to make sure.
So just this little summary here. According to the Chicago Police Department, 30 people were shot in 27 separate incidents between 6 p.m. Friday and 11:59 p.m. Sunday. They were included 2 18-year-olds who were killed in different shootings on Sunday. Yeah.
I got a call.
The news is fake.
That's false, man. They got gun laws in Chicago. There are no guns in Chicago. So how does this work?
I
How do
don't
people
know.
shoot if there's not guns
I
in
don't
Chicago?
know. But it's interesting, the guns they do have, none of them are assault weapons. These are all handguns.
And we're not asking for the libs to change their focus onto handguns either. But
No.
it's
Don't
funny.
misinterpret that. It's just, I find it interesting that the day in, day out violence that occurs in all of these major cities, one, they don't talk about it. And two, the weapons that are used are the general run-of-the-mill common handgun. It's not the dreaded black assault weapon, the black rifles and all that kind of stuff.
With all the bells and whistles.
With all the bells and whistles.
Now, I think that's part of it, and part of it is the perpetrators and the victims, if they don't fit something that the woke crowd can rally around to push these gun control laws, if those victims and those perpetrators, how many? 30
people shot
over the weekend. If those people aren't in the upscale neighborhood or in the high-end parts of Chicago, then they're not going to get the same sort of support from these wokesters.
Yep.
That somebody like that lady that you're talking about that got shot, all of a sudden everybody rushes to, hey, we got to do something. We got to do something now. Get that law passed through, even if you have to cheat, lie, and steal to make it happen.
Yep.
But
absolutely, and the senseless violence that occurs all the time because of bad policy and bad conditions that the people have to live in because of all those bad policies. I mean, some of this stuff, just in one incident, an 18-year-old man was killed and a 17-year-old boy injured as they attempted to purchase a pair of shoes from a social media marketplace seller during a meetup. The teens were parked in a vehicle around 2 p.m. The seller took the victim's money and then produced a handgun and fired shots striking the victims. The 18-year-old was struck in the chest and pronounced dead. The 17-year-old was shot in the right elbow and hospitalized in good condition. Another 18-year-old man was killed just before 7:30 p.m. on Sunday, being shot in the 1100 block of West 77th Street. He was struck by gunfire and rushed to University of Chicago Medical Center, where he was pronounced deceased.
I feel like the first one is justified if they were Air Jordans.
That could be.
So I think that one we can.
That might be. There could be some truth to that. Moments earlier, At 7 p.m., a 35-year-old man was shot in the face. He was taken to Stroger Hospital in critical condition, but later died of his injuries. 36-year-old man was killed Friday night following an argument in the 300 block of North Hamlin Avenue. And police said there was a verbal altercation at a gathering around 10:30 when someone pulls out a handgun and fatally shot the victim in the chest. A 32-year-old man was killed in a drive-by shooting just after 3 a.m. Saturday. Nothing good happens after 2 in the morning. In the 5300 block of West Atgeld Street, someone inside the black sedan fired at the victim as he walked on a sidewalk. 25-year-old man died after he was shot in the stomach Saturday in the 1200 block of West 73rd Street. He was inside a residence in the area just before 6 p.m. when someone shot him. He was pronounced dead on the scene. So this violence occurs. All of that was just last weekend.
I was just going to ask you, is that for a whole month? It's
No.
for 3 days?
That
or
was
2.5 days?
2.5 days. It's crazy. And this isn't unusual. It just happens all the time.
Right. Good looking out on that. It's upside down world we live in, for sure. For sure. What else you got, Craig?
Well, actually, I think you had something.
Kicking it over to me?
Yep.
So going along with the Second Amendment themes, my segment here I'd like to do is best and worst states to live in for the Second Amendment. This comes to you and I from gunsandammo.com, and I'd like to review just real quick how they're ranking. They're just not throwing these states out there willy-nilly. It's based on a set of criteria that is graded by each state how they stack up to this criteria. So let me run through that really quick here first. First grading criteria from this Guns and Ammo article is the right to carry. So obviously in this instance, if the state does have right to carry laws in place, they would rank higher than the ones that restrict the right to carry. Second grading criterion is how they classify black rifles or the scary rifles. Higher marks as far as better gun to Second Amendment states are going to not have the quote-unquote assault weapons or assault rifle bans littering their law books, where the ones that don't have any kind of that verbiage would have a higher grade. Next criterion is National Firearms Act, NFA. Some states are ignorant or deflective of the laws or the suggestions pushed down by the NFA, where other...
A lot more restrictive.
That's right.
Yep.
Where other states take everything they say and implement it into their policies. Castle Doctrine is the fourth criterion. Does the state have a Castle Doctrine protector, law protectant for people to protect themselves during attacks? And then the fifth and final criterion is considered miscellaneous. Basically, this is the one where the writers of this article kind of took some anecdotal and evidence and historical pieces from these states and kind of came up with their own score based on that. Red flag laws would penalize a state. Firearm preemptive laws, which restrict local governments from imposing their own gun laws, would be detrimental to their score also, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So, Craig, just off the top of your head, who do you think is we'll start with the worst, and then we'll give you some of the top ones. Give me who you think might be in the bottom five.
Well, in the bottom five, you have to have California's in there. New York, New Jersey.
Any last ditch?
Chicago.
Illinois? So
yeah, Illinois. Yeah. No, the state of Chicago.
All right, so here you go. New York is the worst.
Okay, I can buy that.
And they rank as 51 out of 50 states, with Washington, D.C. having its own, even though it's not a state, of course. Hawaii, number 2, or the second worst.
Really?
Yes. How do you like that?
Wow. I guess that's the price you pay for living in a beautiful place.
That's
like
right.
that. But honestly, that wouldn't be worth it to me.
New Jersey, you said that, so kudos. California, kudos. California's 48 out of 51 territories. And the last one I'll do for the worst of the worst is Massachusetts, coming in at 47.
Okay.
Actually, I'm going to do one more. Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Washington, D.C. is that fifth worst state.
Where's Washington State come in on there?
Washington State, let me go down here. They are 41 out of 51 states.
Okay, so not quite as bad, but they're on their way to trying to get down to the bottom.
They're working hard at. They want that higher number for sure. So let's switch gears. Let's talk about the 5 best, and let's see if our state, the great state of Ohio, fits into that. What do you think?
I think it would. I think Texas would be in there. West Virginia. Probably Indiana. How bad did I do?
You didn't hit any of them.
I did.
Is
Ohio in there?
No.
Wow.
Would it surprise you to know that Ohio is 22nd
Really?
out of 51 territories? Yep, 22nd.
Okay.
So let me give you who the big number 1 is. For our friends out in Wyoming, congratulations. You are number 1 as far as the friendliest Second Amendment state in the great United States of America. Good on you. Number 2, right next to Wyoming, Idaho.
And I should have probably known that one.
Everything up it, you're going to be, there's going to be a theme here. That little block up there of the North Midwest.
So both Dakotas are then.
Montana, number 3. Utah, number 4. That one kind of surprised me.
Yeah, a little bit.
I know it was going to be near the top, but I didn't think it would be that much. Arizona really surprised me.
That one surprises me too. I just assumed that they were a little bit farther on the.
Yeah, I would have guessed them around
side.
the 20s and us being closer to the top in Ohio. But then your North and South Dakota take the 6th and 7th station.
Okay.
But that's kind of fun. Texas is number 8. I would have guessed, as you did, that Texas would have ranked right up there. I think Austin is screwing it up for Texas. That Austin metroplex of a bunch of California transplants that are ruining that beautiful city. It's your fault. It's your fault Texas isn't in the top 5.
That's still that list. When you start listing them and then you start thinking about it, okay, some of it makes more sense. I still would have thought Ohio would have been better.
Yeah, I was hoping Ohio would be better, and we don't have it horrible here, but we do have 3 major city hubs that skew our state politics. They are as blue can be.
That's true.
So if it was left up to rural Ohio, which geographically, off the top of my head, is going to take up 80 to 85% of the geographic locations of Ohio. If it was up to us, we'd be number 1. I guarantee you. There are gun-loving folks in Ohio, and the fact that we have 3 million plus metroplexes with a bunch of libs mucking things up for us.
Yeah,
that's why we're 22.
Yeah, and honestly, also, I thought Ohio would have been higher 10 years ago. If you would have told me 21, I would have believed it a lot more. But there's been a lot of positive legislation for as far as firearms.
That's fair.
We used to have high capacity magazine limits. We used to, the stand your ground, wasn't there. We have constitutional carry now.
That's true.
So I mean, things are getting better. So I still. I want to re-vote. I think Ohio's still better than 21.
Well, maybe they're this article is written in 22, so maybe this is based on stuff that happened going from 21 to 22.
Well, actually, with all the criteria you listed, you're probably right. Those cities are kind of mucking it up for us.
I'm sure they are. I'm sure.
And then when I stop and think about the absolute freedom you have in some of those other states, I can see where that would really skew it. So
right.
I think your list is probably accurate.
Not too shabby. Just as a little side note, our number 1 state of Wyoming scored a perfect score across all those 5 grading criterion. along with Idaho, Montana, Utah, and Arizona. So I'm not sure how they came up with, they got 50 out of 50 points possible. So I'm not sure how they segregated. Why did Wyoming get 1 versus Arizona, for instance? And it does not say in here. But
Well, Wyoming, a beautiful state. I've spent quite a bit of time in Wyoming. I lived in Idaho for 5.5 years. Yeah, maybe we need to move.
yeah, we need to at least have a bug out location, right? All right, that's what I had for that. I thought that would be pretty interesting.
Alrighty. And what else you got?
Is the next one, let's see, chickens?
I
All
think
right.
so.
All right, so we have had a previous snippet on random shots about chickens. There are more rural and suburban families that are taking up chicken farming to counter the rising prices in not only eggs but protein sources.
Yes.
Which eggs is a very big protein source. Coupled with the fact that the culling of chickens over the past couple years, to be exact, they have here's a staggering number, Craig. Just last year, just last season, which was the fall of 2022, 10 million chickens were culled because of the avian flu.
Wow.
So what the story I'm bringing to you today is something to stack on top of that culling of the Asian bird flu. January 30th, article comes out, maybe you saw something about this on the news. Fire destroys a large chicken house at a large Connecticut egg production complex. Three alarm blaze, total loss. Killed 100,000 egg-laying hens. Now, 100,000 is a blip. Why I wanted to throw this in there is it kind of goes along with some of our themes outside of the 2A lane of preparedness, trying to give you little blips of what may or may not be coming down the pipe for us here. But egg prices are already bad at anywhere from $4.50 to $6 a dozen right now.
Yep.
Stuff like this happens, it's going to cause more. I don't know if you saw the TSC chicken feed. There's a TSC chicken feed conspiracy going on right now.
I did hear something about that. Is that where the hens aren't laying eggs anymore?
That's right, because evidently TSC buys. This is. I cannot confirm this. This is what people are saying. I am only stating what.
So this is the conspiracy theory.
This is the
part.
conspiracy.
Okay.
The company that makes and packages chicken feed for TSC is owned by a large poultry. I can't remember what's that, Tyson?
Oh, they're a big one, yeah.
I don't know if it's Tyson or not, but just think Tyson, just something that is a household name with poultry, is owned by a poultry and an egg producing conglomerate. So the conspiracy is that they're putting egg blocking enzymes or egg blocking hormones into the feed in order to keep ramping up the prices of their product, which is egg farm / poultry, in order to get all of us yahoo hayseeds to stop raising the productive egg-laying small farms, small homesteads, the mom and pop 5 and 6 chickens in the backyard, get them to stop, so we are now going back to being more reliant on going to the grocery store and grabbing a dozen of eggs.
Wow.
So that's the conspiracy. I don't know if that is true, false, other.
Well, I saw a couple videos recently along those lines. That's why I thought maybe it was with the hens laying, because there's some people there. I'll call them local ranchers. They're the people raising their own chickens.
Yeah.
And like for the past 6-7 months, they were saying that their egg production from their hens has been dropping, and so they've switched their feed to locally sourced feed.
That's where it's coming from.
And their hens are now fine.
That's where it's coming from, is because there has been a large amount of small chicken farm homestead yahoos that are complaining that And it's normal for chickens to stop laying over the winter. That's or slow down. Where you used to get an egg every day, now you might get an egg from a hen once every 3
I imagine
or 4.
there's occasional blips anyway.
But the people are complaining that they are getting nothing for months out of a time out of a hen, and they are starting to look into this as a possibility. Again, whether it's founded or unfounded, I'm not here to lay judgment, but that's where it's coming from.
Interesting. It does make you think, doesn't it?
It does, and dude, our conspiracies that we've been accused of being whack jobs for the last 3 years
That have all
come true.
Yep.
It makes me want to jump in with 2 feet, but that goes against the Eben Plank rule of give it time to pan out. So,
Yep. And I would agree that we need to give it time because you never know for sure. It seems like there's an awful lot. There's so much stuff feeding this conspiracy. Fires all over the place. You got meat packing plants,
Yes.
Fires. You got chicken processing plants. You got chicken, the hen houses, large farms, ranches everywhere. It makes
well, let me
you
ask
wonder.
you this: if they are failing in their attempt to take our guns away from us, what is the next way they can control us?
Well, you control the food.
That's right. You control the people.
Yeah, the people will eventually become very subservient if you become their only source of food.
Yep. It's makes you go, You are absolutely right. All right, what's next, Craig?
Well, in a related note.
Oh boy, more doom and gloom.
Yeah, I got this from an article from a thing called the Daily Fetched. Now, this article was written last year, but it was kind of summing up or summarizing the reality of our food supply stuff.
Okay.
Based on all the statistics from 2022. Now, keep in mind, when you go to the grocery store to buy your groceries, with some exceptions, obviously, most of what you're buying on the shelf is food that was grown the year before. So all your boxed stuff, all your canned stuff. I mean, even a lot of your produce, like potatoes and stuff, they'll sit in a warehouse for sometimes up to a year before they're actually distributed out everywhere. That's just part of the supply chain. And so we haven't really seen a lot of the impact of things that's happening yet. Well, this article, basically, it's called "This Is Not a Drill: 33 Things We Know About the Coming Food Shortages." And this is just a list. I'm just going to read through these just kind of, quickly. And it just really makes you think. I mean, we're not going to investigate each one of these claims. They're all sourced.
I want to know what's wrong with that loaf of bread that nobody wants it.
Well,
mold on it?
I don't think so.
Does it have mold?
I think someone just put that on the shelf for photo purposes.
Oh, is that right?
But anyone that's been to a grocery store lately, the shelves don't really look that bad most of the time.
This is hyperbole then, huh?
Right, it's hyperbole. But if you look behind, there's a thing called fronting, where they pull the stuff forward so the shelves all look full.
Right.
If you go past that front,
there's not much
sometimes
there.
there's nothing behind it. I mean,
you know what I've noticed too, Craig, is that 2 years ago or whatever, they would have one facing, maybe two facings.
Yeah, now
you
got 4 or 5 wide. Yes,
and to fill
fewer
space.
selection.
That's right.
And some of this is going to be why. So number one, the hard red winter wheat crop in the United States this year, and when they say this year, they're talking for 2022, was the smallest since 1963. Now, also, in addition to that, in 1963, there were only 182 million people living in the U.S., and today our population has grown to 329 million. So, twice the number of people, and the smallest, red winter wheat crop since then.
Wow.
Number two, it's being projected that the rice harvest in California is going to be half of a normal year. Number three, the U.S. tomato harvest is going to come in at 10.5 million tons in 2022. It's over 1 million tons lower than a normal year.
That one hurts a little bit. I love my Italian food.
Yep.
And if I don't have my tomato sauce, I'm going to get hangry.
And think of all the things out there that has tomatoes in it.
Oh, 100%.
Yep. The fourth one, this is going to be the worst U.S. corn harvest in at least a decade. Number five, year-to-date shipments of carrots in the United States are down 45%.
I can do without them.
Yeah, well, there again though, carrots, carrot juices and stuff like that in a lot of products. Year-to-date shipments of sweet corn in the U.S. are down 20%. So not just the worst corn harvest, but sweet corn in particular is down. Year-to-date shipments of sweet potatoes in the U.S. down 13%. Year-to-date shipments of celery down 11%. Total peach production in the U.S. is down 15%.
Wow.
Almost 3/4 of all U.S. farmers say that this year's drought is hurting their harvests. Thanks to the drought, the total number of cattle in Oregon is down 41%. That's
Wow.
huge. The total number of cattle in New Mexico is down 43%. The total number of cattle in Texas is down 50%.
Is this have anything to do, is there a possible conspiracy on this too? With you must eat the bugs.
Well,
Klaus
I don't-
Schwab? Is he trying to...
I don't know, but one way or another, there's something. We're down almost half our red meat production in the country. One
hate
beef
us.
producer in Oklahoma is now predicting that ground beef could eventually top $50 per pound. Now, this one I did actually do a little bit more reading into. They're putting all these factors in there, including inflation, the feed for your average food for a cow. You got to feed them, before
Part
they
of that's
become your
affected
food.
by the corn up here.
Part of that's
yeah.
affected by all the other stuff. It's doubled. It used to be about $200 per cow in feed cost. It's over $400
Wow.
now. And that's just that step. By the time you put in also just inflation, supply chain cost increase, fuel increases, it's that's where they're coming up with that $50 per pound.
Smells a little bit like a control move. A strong arm move is coming in here on a lot of this stuff.
I could
you're
see
saying.
something. I could see this would open up and what can't allow any crisis to go to waste.
That's right. That's right.
At least 40% of the United States has been suffering from drought conditions for 101 consecutive weeks. For 2022, this is the worst multi-year mega drought in the United States in 1,200 years.
Jeez.
Europe is currently experiencing the worst drought it's seen in 500 years, and in some parts of Central Europe, river levels have fallen so low that hunger stones are being revealed for the first time in centuries.
I don't know what that means.
Actually, I'm not sure what it is either.
Okay. Somebody tell us in the comments.
Yeah,
below.
if you know
What's a
what
hunger
that
stone?
means. But basically, the water levels are down farther than they've been like in centuries. Corn production in the entire EU could be down by as much as 1/5. We're being warned that there'll be crop losses in France up to 35%.
Yeah, we don't care about the French.
Yeah, well, remember it's a global economy now though.
Okay.
It's being projected that crop losses in some parts of the UK could be as high as 50%. There'll be crop losses of up to 50% in some parts of Germany. Farmers in Italy have already lost up to 80% of their harvest. Agricultural production in Somalia will be down 80% this year. In Eastern Africa, okay, we always joke about that, but Somalia has actually become a large food
Has it
producer.
really?
Yeah. In Eastern Africa, the endless droughts already resulted in the deaths of at least 7 million animals. In China, they're facing the worst drought they've experienced in recorded history. India normally accounts for 40% of the global rice trade, but they're warning that the production in that country will be down in 2022 due to considerable rainfall deficits. A third of the entire nation of Pakistan was underwater for recent floods, absolutely devastated the nation, and agricultural areas were hit particularly hard. Basically, crops, the majority of them have been washed away.
No more opium?
Yeah, well, we're talking food here.
Oh, okay.
So it's also been estimated roughly 65% of the country's food basket, particularly crops like rice, cotton, wheat, and onion, have been washed away. Let's see. The price of some fertilizers tripled since 2021.
I was going to bring that up, Craig. I was going to see if something like mentioning the fertilizer. Yep. Isn't Ukraine supply like 2/3 of the fertilizer?
Well, that's what's interesting. Let's finish this list first,
Okay,
and then we'll add on to it. One payment company is reporting that the number of Americans using their app, so that whatever this company is, they have an app, to take out short-term loans for groceries. So borrowing money for groceries has risen by 95%.
That's when you're in trouble.
Yes. Demand is U.S. food banks is now even it's now even worse than it was during the height of the COVID pandemic. The WHO is telling millions of people in Africa are now potentially facing a very real possibility of starvation. And
again,
the UN Secretary General has publicly stated that he believes there will be multiple famines in 2023. Now add to that add to all of that. That's all 2022 impacts. Now we have the war going on in Ukraine. The fertilizer producer. They also produce between the Ukraine and Russia. They produce it's like 70% of the wheat crop globally.
I was going to ask that too.
So, okay, Russia's not likely to sell what they have to anyone else right now, and the Ukraine, well, they're lighting that country up on fire. So, you think your average farmer is going to go out there in the Ukraine and get his tractor out there?
Right, and be a target.
So, you add it all up. This is bad news.
I tell you what, the 90% of the people, or 90% raise in people that are using their credit for that's alarming. Because you know what the next step is, Craig? If you are going into debt for your groceries, adding the ungodly interest rates on top of your monthly payments, that is a quick downward spiral into financial just hell.
Yep.
A quick spiral. And once you're in there and you can't use that credit card anymore because the banks have shut you off, or you're kicked out of your house and you're on the streets begging for money. What is the next step for those people that 90% has raised? What's the next step if they can't buy money anymore on credit or with cash? What do you think they're going to do? What is that percentage? How many of them are going to turn to breaking and entering, stealing, just going into ransacking grocery stores and running out? You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's the correlation between crime, potential crime, and that number right there, I think, is something that is
it's huge.
It's a huge
I mean,
correlation.
let's face it. It's not like the olden days where people get into credit card debt because they went out and they bought their midlife crisis car, decided to have a night out in the town.
Right.
They went in and just cranked up the thing, and then the stuff's tight for the next couple months, or bad medical bills.
They're past that.
We're talking food.
Right.
I mean, you have to eat, and people are going to get desperate. They're going to start, to your point, they're going to get their food one way or another.
They're going to do whatever it takes
to
feed
it.
their kids, their family.
To feed them and their family and their
when
kids.
you get hungry enough. And I would too, but the moral of the story is, don't get here.
Yep.
Don't get here. Don't get to the 90. Don't be one of those 90% hikes using your credit card for it.
There are programs out there, and there's evidence here. People have been using them. Use those programs as much as we can. Now, here comes the danger with all of this too. I mean, you have that. This is going to be the crisis that you kind of alluded to. The government being able to step in and
you want to eat?
You want to eat? Yeah, we'll take care of that.
You need to be in this lane, voting this way. And that's actually a key to leftist power. Is once you get 51% on the dole, that they're relying on that government to keep them alive, the country's toast.
Yes.
Country's toast. So interesting list. When it started out, all I could think about, I don't know if you got that picture, but the gluten, the wheat, the hard wheat, is going to hurt. Actually, it's going to help the gluten-free people because they won't have wheat to make bread.
I don't have that one listed.
Do you have that picture on there?
Yeah.
I saw this thing on Babylon Bee. It said that lefties are all excited about becoming communists, but they're worried that there won't be a gluten-free bread line. And I thought that was pretty fun. That kind of goes along with that.
Yep.
All right, anyway, good list.
So what else you got?
Let's see, what did I have? Give me some stall time here, because I did not have it prepared. What did dangerous mistakes? Is that what you're looking at?
Okay. Yep.
All right, since we are a gun channel, and since we cater to both the very experienced like Craig here and the somewhat noobs like myself, I came across a list of 9 items, 9 dangerous mistakes that new gun owners make. I'm going to go down through these, and if you could just give some color commentary on each one, we can banter back and forth. So 9 dangerous mistakes that new gun owners make. This comes off of a record year over the holiday as far as gun sales. FBI has done a record number of background NICS checks on Black Friday, about 2 per second. Think about that.
Oh, wow.
They had 2 NICS backgrounds per second. Safe to say, if you got a gun for Christmas, welcome to the club. But we don't want to be Ralphie. We don't want to shoot our eye out, right?
That is very true. Yep.
So here are some things that may be very obvious to a lot of you, and might be something that would be useful to a lot of you new gun owners. Failing to safety check. This is, I think, the primo one. Safety checks, Craig.
That's probably the biggest one, or one of the biggest ones. I mean, you want to make sure before you start to handle a firearm that it is free and clear of all ammunition.
Whether you walked away 30 seconds ago and came back in and it's still sitting in the same place you put it, you check it again.
Yep. If it has not been in your complete, total physical and mental control, I mean, if you're messing with something, you pick it up and you can't quite remember,
you assume it's loaded.
You assume it's loaded.
Yep.
And actually, the general rule is every gun is always loaded all the time. You treat it that way, and things go better.
Good. Number 2, not pointing the gun in a safe direction is a mistake new gun owners make.
Yes. It's called flagging. Basically, you need to treat that gun, whatever that muzzle's pointing at, has the potential to be destroyed or killed. And it's real easy to forget that.
Then you have a bad day on your hands.
Then you have a bad day on your hands.
Whether it's hurting yourself or hurting somebody else.
Yep.
I forget who told me this, but somebody always told me when I was learning gun safety that just picture a laser coming out the edge and like a lightsaber.
Yep.
Anywhere you're pointing it, it's just cutting down everything in front of it. And if you keep that in mind every time you handle a gun, then you should be pointing it in a safe direction at all times.
Yep.
Number 3, this is a term that I was not aware of. New gun owners don't index.
Yeah, you were asking me about that, and actually I have to be honest, that was a term I wasn't super familiar with either, and it's just probably a regional thing. It's called different things. Trigger discipline. Basically, the little loop that, the trigger guard that goes around the trigger, your finger don't go into that space until you are ready to fire the weapon. Otherwise, your finger is never, ever on that trigger. And that's a big one you see all the time. You see that in Hollywood and, in all the movies. They're carrying it with their finger on the trigger and stuff. And it's like all that takes is a muscle spasm, right. Someone knocking into you, just the slightest thing, and that could be bad.
You think that's we maybe be a little bit late to the game if Alec Baldwin's watching this show? He could have probably benefited from that. He could have probably
benefited from that, but the more I've been hearing about that, the more I don't know about that one, man. Well, that's a whole show on itself we're going to have to do.
Number 4, improper storage.
Yeah,
I take this as just maybe for kid safety.
Yep.
Or for reverse personal safety. If you're leaving your gun lay on your kitchen countertop while you're in bed downstairs.
Yep.
You're leaving that gun available to a possible intruder, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep. Yeah. If the firearm is not in your immediate control, it needs to be locked up. Because if it's not in your control, whose control is it in? And it could be a bad guy. It could be a loved one who just isn't aware, a curious child. It's just,
yep.
Yeah.
Some respects, the keeping guns in a safe or a locked room or something like that would come into play, but not going too far where you still have the ability to defend yourself and your family and your house.
Yes.
By quick access.
Yep.
All right. Number 5, lack of personal training. This is I think this ranks up there real close to the top.
Yeah, it does. And okay, first and foremost, I'm a Second Amendment person. I don't think there should be no government mandated requirements for you to own a firearm.
Agreed.
It's a God-given right. The Second Amendment actually does not give us that right. The Second Amendment actually protects the government from infringing on that right, which is endowed upon us by our Creator. So,
amen.
the reality, though, with after saying all that, owning a firearm, there is a level of responsibility that you owe to yourself and to the common man. Get training. You don't have to go out and get the John Wick School of Firearms operation, but at least get some basic knowledge, basic understanding of how your particular firearm works. Basics of firearm safety, shooting. If nothing else, it will make you just better able to operate it, and it'll go a long way, just for safety for yourself and others.
I think it says on the little blurb underneath this one that studies have shown that you really don't gain that muscle memory and real knowledge of how your firearm works until you've thrown close to 1,000 rounds through it.
Yep.
That's a good start, especially if you've never fired guns before. It's your first gun. Make sure you spend the money to throw some close to 1,000 rounds through it. Not all in one day. Shooting 1,000 rounds in a day
that's pointless, actually.
It is. It has to be repetition. Another thing they put in here is utilizing fake ammo to practice clearing jams. That's important.
That's important, yeah.
For those of maybe some people that anything from women that have never utilized firearms to people that have always had revolvers, learning how to rack a semi-auto isn't something that correlates with anything else in life. I mean, it's just not a natural movement.
No, it's not. It's unique in and of itself. Yes.
That requires practice.
Yep.
Number 6, failing to educate family members. I think this ties into one of the earlier ones.
Yeah. There again, that's part of the education. A lot of people make the mistake, they'll buy a firearm and then they'll hide it from their family.
That's an interesting
which I find odd. Or they'll do the thing with, well, I've got a little child, so I want to make sure that they don't know about it.
Well, if you live in someplace like Chicago or some of the worst states, if that child goes and tells their teacher that there's a gun at,
well, okay,
that's a real.
There could actually be a risk with that. Yes, from the Big Brother.
I'm playing devil's
state.
advocate here.
That's true. And that is actually a valid point. But by and large, if you have a firearm in the house, everyone in the family should know some basics about it. And I'm just going to go out and say this, if you think that someone in your family represents a risk if there's a firearm that they could get a hold of, you probably shouldn't have one.
Good point.
I mean, I'm all for Second Amendment, I'm all for firearms, I'm all for freedom, but you also have to be smart.
I know in my generation, and probably your generation, that we were more exposed probably to guns growing up than today's generation. I think that should not be glossed over. If you have children, they need to be shown the destructive power of a gun, because all they have exposure to without you being a parent and going out there and showing them the safe handling of a gun and what destructive power a gun can have. All they see is video games where you have 9 lives and you just pop right back up after you've been shot. We have to take into account that has some sort of effect on how they perceive guns. And if they don't understand, if they don't have a perception of gun can end your life, a gun can do this type of thing, never ever ever point it into anything that you don't, all that stuff. If they don't have that visual and that mental instruction, then even when they're adolescents or grow into adults, they're not going to pick it up until something very horrible happens. And that's how they're going to learn their lesson. And nobody wants to learn a lesson that way.
No, that's very well said.
All right, 7, wrong ammunition. I guess it can happen, right?
It happens more than what you would think, actually.
Should I throw myself under the bus on the RG10? Remember that one?
That's I'd forgotten about that until you just mentioned it.
This can happen. RG10, is that up here? Yeah, right here. Oh,
yeah, just don't touch it.
RG10 actually. We tried shooting 22 long. I tried shooting 22 longs through it first, not realizing it was a short.
Yeah, just since you went ahead and brought it up, I'll go ahead. So Was it hard to shoot for any particular reason?
Oh, yes. It took me a couple seconds, all right, a couple minutes to figure out that the end of the 22, the bullet of the 22 LR was longer than the cylinder, so it wouldn't let it rotate.
Yes.
And I just sat there and what the hell is going on?
But you muscled through and you got that
I
cylinder.
muscled through on one or two shots and had some shards shooting out the side. Felt little speckles of lead, you know.
Yeah, and
So.
actually, 22 long rifle, and 22 short, you're a little forgiving with that. If you make a mistake, not as bad.
Little self-deprecating anecdote there. Please don't be too mean to me in the comments below. I know I was a dumbass, but I learned my lesson. So.
Yeah, but you go above 22 though,
And then it
and
becomes
then
a problem.
that becomes a real serious problem where a firearm, you could actually have a catastrophic failure of the firearm.
One of the things they mention in this blurb is that there has been past instances of people mistaking 45 ACP, 45 gap, 45 long Colt.
Yep,
They do not intermix.
that is correct. And it doesn't help the fact that, okay, you've got your 9mm. You got 9mm short, 9mm Largo, 9x23, 9x21. 38 Super, which looks just like, 9x23. It can be confusing, and for someone who's new, ask the questions. When you buy a firearm, ask the store person where you're buying it from, what ammunition does this take? And then pay attention to what they say, and then only, make sure you buy the right stuff.
And there's this cool thing called YouTube.
And there's
And
lots of
there's this
information out there. Yep.
awesome channel called Craig's Gun Channel
Yeah.
that probably has your gun on a video that Craig has laid out all the specifications you need on it. So check it out.
Yep.
All right, number 8. This is one that I did not think about prior to this, but it makes perfect sense, and I'm going to have you expound on it. But wrong or cheaply made holsters.
Actually, yeah. Cheap holsters. Okay, let's go back, because the cheap holsters and wrongly made holsters are kind of the same thing because they cause the same problem.
That's fair.
A holster, it does more than just hold your firearm. It also is supposed to cover certain parts, primarily the trigger, to make sure that there's nothing that's going to cause an accidental discharge. A improperly fitted holster can actually cause the firearm to go off when you're putting the gun in the holster. It actually happens more often than what you think it would. There's actually a video I saw. I don't know. It can't have been too long ago because I remember it. But it was a police officer that was off duty, and he had his personal sidearm and a holster. So he's someone that knows firearms, handles guns. He had on a hoodie, and it had the drawstring on the bottom. Well, when he went to holster his gun, the drawstring from his hoodie got caught in the holster, and he holstered the gun. Well, that drawstring got caught in between it got through the trigger guard somehow, or around the trigger, and when he holstered the gun and pushed it down into the holster, it actually pulled the trigger. He shot himself in the leg. That holster really wasn't fitted quite properly, because a properly fitted holster would help to prevent that. But that could still happen because that's a foreign object that's gotten into the holster. Quality holsters are worth the money for that reason. Cheap holsters, usually they're a multi-fit thing. You pick up the package, it's like, oh look, this, name. There's some name brand ones too. I won't name them, but
Mike's.
Okay, I will. Uncle Mike's. They have these holsters. It's like, oh look, it's size C, and you look at the back,
there's 85
and there's like
different,
85 different firearms that have fit in there, and they all will. They'll all slide into that. But it's like a flexible little nylon thing that doesn't provide. You could actually just kind of squeeze the gun through the holster and pull the trigger if you really tried to. So, you get what you pay for. Get a good quality holster that's fitted to your gun, and it's just a lot safer.
This number 9 is not learning about firearm laws. This is maybe something that gets overlooked in this, but very important.
Yes, that is. there's a lot. There's a lot of people that not okay. In Ohio, it doesn't happen as much now because we have constitutional carry. But prior to that, and even when we first had our concealed carry licenses, people were getting into trouble because you have to know the laws. When they first passed our concealed carry law in Ohio, you could have your concealed carry permit, you could carry your gun concealed, but when you got in your car to drive, you weren't allowed to have your gun concealed on you. You had to have it, you couldn't actually have it on your person. It had to be still locked away, you know. It was all kinds of goofy.
Right.
And so people were like inadvertently breaking that law all the time. Another real common one, people go to the gun store, they'll go in, they'll buy a gun, they'll buy a box of ammo, they'll go in, they'll put it in their car, and they'll drive off. Okay, they're breaking the law.
Right.
Because they have ready access to both the firearm and the ammunition under their control while they're operating a vehicle. That's illegal in most states. There again, Ohio now, we have constitutional carry, so you'd kind of be okay.
Yep.
But so you need to really be aware because you might be breaking the law and not even realize it.
Yep. It's would it be safe to recommend that there are classes of how to interact if you're being pulled over with a concealed weapon and stuff like that? Would it be safe to recommend to our newer gun owners to get into one of these classes? I think Safe Shield, or what's the insurance companies that they have online classes that walk you through?
Yeah.
CCC.
You've asked me too fast now. I can't remember it.
There's 2 or 3 of them out there that are widely recognized and used. I'm not condoning them, and I'm not saying that you need to sign up for their insurance. However, they do have a lot of good literature on reciprocity. They've got good videos on how to interact with or what to do in the case of having to discharge your firearm, etc. Law Shield is one of them.
Yeah, Law Shield's one of them. I think, is it USCCA?
That's it, USCCA. All of these have have just a plethora. There's the word for the day. Plethora of utility information and videos and etc. that'll help you navigate your own state's gun laws, which is very important.
Yep.
So that's the end of that. Pretty cool list. Hope that was helpful to somebody out there.
Okay. Well, I think that's actually pretty much it. There's just the one more thing we wanted to mention, I think. See if I can pull up the picture here.
There is a blurb that came across that Puxatawny Phil has a bounty on his head for predicting 6 more weeks of winter. So enjoy. You've taken something from me that's very special, Puxatawny. Yeah, spring can't come soon enough. Well, thank you very much, guys.
Yep. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you want to continue to see more content like this. We had in our one of our prior episodes, we were talking about some of those like side stream economies and stuff that are out there. Parallel economies, I guess is the right term. Yeah, for those of you that might not be aware, YouTube is kind of on a tear lately on anything that's kind of 2A related. So we're on Rumble, Utreon, Patreon, Odyssey. So please look us up on those other platforms as well. We would appreciate any support from there also. But if you just want to watch us just on YouTube, I appreciate we appreciate your viewership.
We appreciate you.
Yep.
Hey, can we tell them that at this point that next Thursday, or I'm sorry, Thursday, not next Thursday, but the following Thursday, are we going to be live?
Yes.
So today is the.
This was our trial run. So we're actually broadcasting this live. However, we're not going to be releasing it to the public today because we want to make sure we got all the bugs worked out. And clearly we didn't because I was having some technical issues. But
good enough.
But as we go forward, the intent will be for us to be fully live, to be starting not next Thursday, the Thursday after that, and barring something weird coming up schedule-wise, we will be live going forward. So if you have any comments or anything while the show's going on, it's 8 o'clock Eastern time on Thursdays, and
we'd love
your
nothing
comments
better than a handful to start out of you guys to join us live and start feeding us some feedback chatter. We'll call you out. It'll be our first real true live.
Yep.
like you to be a part of it and help us grow.
Yep. So appreciate as always your support, and so I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up there. And any final words?
See ya. Thank you.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.